Hello everyone and welcome back to our last MT10 News Vote 2020.
Data reporter Jonas Saich has our final numbers and predictions.
And has Tennessee always truly been a red state?
All that and more is coming up. MT10 News Vote 2020 starts right now.
Live from Studio One on the campus of Middle Tennessee State University, it's MT10's coverage of the 2020 election.
I'm Terica Black.
And I'm Dave Stripling. Welcome to our final MT10 News Vote 2020 show.
Data reporter Jonas Saich and our data analysis Dr. Ken Blake join us for our final latest poll results.
We have almost made it. We are at the 12 a.m. mark. It's been 5 hours. I am joined by Dr. Blake. I am sure you are just as tired as I am. How quickly are you falling asleep as soon as we end this newscast tonight?
Maybe about the time I turned my mic off.
Same. I actually might fall asleep as I'm talking about this. I'm getting drowsy as we speak. But we got a show to run, and we got two reports for you. One at the beginning, one at the end. And we're going to start with how this election map looks at the moment. 223, 145. This was actually before they had called Florida. Florida was just called not too long ago. They have a pretty good chance that Florida was going to go Republican either way coming in about 11 o'clock. So this should come as no surprise. Some of the bigger prizes, though, now for Joe Biden are going to be in the Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin area. Those are going to be some big votes. A lot of early ballots haven't all been counted yet. And even in Georgia, you've seen they have stopped counting absentee ballots completely until tomorrow morning. So this isn't done at all. Dr. Blake, of the three states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, what is most likely to go to Trump and what is most likely to go to Biden at this point?
I don't know. I will say that I think Pennsylvania is still, a toss-up. Joe Biden just went on TV and said he is certain he's going to win Pennsylvania. So we'll see. He is currently trailing there. Georgia just a few moments ago began to tilt back toward Biden. This according to the New York Times. They're looking at some results coming out of Atlanta, Georgia, an urban area, a more pro-Biden area. So we'll see about that. Biden certainly needs both Georgia and Pennsylvania to put him over the top. That wall in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan that was looking strong for Biden all night has begun to show some cracks. Biden is starting to trail in Wisconsin and Michigan. He's holding up okay in Minnesota. We'll see. There are again probably absentee ballots and mail-in ballots still to be counted there. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are a few reasons why you might expect Pennsylvania to kind of still be a flip. Going back to Georgia, though, you mentioned not a lot of the urban cities have actually been reported. DeKalb County, I believe, has less than 35% reported, and they are done for the night. They're going to catch back up tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So while Georgia is still very much in favor of Trump, this could dwindle down and actually come down to the wire for a lot of these states, including Georgia. And as we look at the Senate updates, still the same with about 11 remaining, 45-44. Dr. Blake, we talked about this at the last of top of the hour. Are there still any new updates on what may happen or what flips may occur within the race?
None that I can see. I think we're probably just going to have to sleep on this one and see what happens in the morning. Right now there are, according to my numbers, the Democrats have 45 seats, the Republicans 46, and there are 9 remaining. So we'll see.
Yeah, there are a few that are still going on within the races. We have Georgia U.S. Senate, 52.6 in favor of David Perdue. That is in the Georgia Senate. John Ossoff, 45.1% in the Democratic Party, so Georgia may stay with the Republican Party. Georgia's presidential update. We talked about how the big cities are not reporting for the night. You see 45.7% for Biden, 53.1% for Trump. We don't have enough information too close to call, I would say, What are the chances, Dr. Blake, would you assume that this gets so close that this could potentially be, a runoff count or even flip for Georgia?
Oh, gosh, it's difficult to say. If you look at the votes, the top vote getters on the Republican side were, more or less evenly split between Kelly Loeffler and Doug Collins. Raphael Warnock was a little bit ahead of Loeffler. So it'll be interesting to see, if Republicans who were divided between Loeffler and Collins unite behind Loeffler, then Warnock could have a fight on his hands. So, yeah.
So Georgia, just one of the states that we are looking forward to. Ohio has been called moments ago. That has gone in favor of Trump, 53.5%, in favor with over 3 million votes. Biden trailing by 8 percentage points, 45.1%, 2.5 million votes. Dr. Blake, you talked about it a lot. The Republican candidate cannot win without Ohio, as the historical trend has shown. How important was this victory for Donald Trump, especially in some of those northern states?
Well, that's certainly the trend and almost the superstition that you can't win without Ohio. Numerically, it's still possible for Biden to win without Ohio. It would be unusual for him to do that.
Ohio going in favor of Trump. Florida as well in favor of Trump. 51.2%, 47.8%. They called that as well moments ago. We did not have that in our election map at the beginning of the analysis, but we know that Trump has been called the winner in Florida, according to the Associated Press. That has been only a 400,000 vote tally in Florida. I'm not sure if there was many surprises there. Some thought it might flip. Now their heads turn towards Texas to see if anything can happen there. Were Florida and Texas some of the biggest landing spots for Democrats to potentially flip? And how much of a realistic chance was there going into tonight, aside from the polls?
Just a quick update. Joe Biden just won Minnesota. So the electoral vote, while we were talking, this happened. The electoral vote tally is now 223 Biden, 174 Trump, with some big electoral prizes still in play: Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, and certainly Pennsylvania. So I've now forgotten what your question was. I'm sorry. Could you ask?
Hey, that is how fast those results come in. You do a 10-minute segment, and all of a sudden, 2 states have just been called. Dr. Blake, we're still going to have to talk about more of the results coming in later in the show. For now, Dave, Terica.
Still ahead on MT10 News, find out how the state of Tennessee has progressed politically.
And exactly what color is Tennessee? That's coming up next on MT10 News.
All right, I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Kids will spend 15 minutes watching online videos like this one. Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes twice a day. They have the time.
By now, we all know what red and blue states are. Blue states typically vote for more Democrats, and red states typically vote for more Republicans. Tennessee may look like a deep red state in 2020, but has it always been this way? Reporter Dave Stripling has the story.
You'd think with 2 Republican senators, 7 Republicans to 2 Democrats in the House of Representatives, a Republican governor, and state government supermajorities, Tennessee might have been a so-called red state its entire history. But up until a few decades ago, Tennessee was a Democratic stronghold.
Tennessee was blue for a long time, well over a century.
Really up to around 2000. The way we voted in Tennessee was influenced by the Civil War, for over 100 years. If you lived in East Tennessee that sided with the Union, you were a Republican. If you were in Middle or West Tennessee and sided with the Confederacy, you didn't like Abraham Lincoln because he was a Republican, so you became a Democrat.
Then in the 1960s, social change and the civil rights movement started a shift in American politics. Conservatives whose families had long been Democrats became disillusioned with the party of FDR and Truman, and the Republican Party took full advantage of the anger across the Solid South.
Nixon's Southern strategy had a huge impact in Tennessee. Although there are multiple issues embedded in the shift, the Vietnam War, it was dominantly race. There's no question about it. Southern strategy played on Southerners' fears of the change in the racial structure in Tennessee.
Still, although most of the South turned deep red over the next 30 years, Tennessee was still a state that could go either way.
Tennessee had this reputation of a Howard Baker, of Al Gore Sr., the politicians who, regardless of their partisan stripe, were able to build bipartisan coalitions.
Tennessee had been kind of a swing state in presidential years.
Democrat Al Gore followed his father's famous footsteps and party affiliation into the U.S. House of Representatives in 1977, and then into the U.S. Senate in 1985, where he remained until Tennessee voters helped elect him vice president to Democratic President Bill Clinton in 1992. 7 years later, Gore failed to win the presidency after losing Tennessee.
2000, if Al Gore had been able to carry his home state, he would have been president. Florida would not have mattered.
So what exactly happened in that 8 years?
There was a wave of supermajority takeovers across the South.
Everyone was mad in 1994.
Certainly the Newt Gingrich shift was really big in Tennessee. There was a heavy focus on the Republican Party standing for business.
The wedge issues hurt the Democratic Party in rural areas: guns, abortion.
This shift from blue to red continued into 2010 with the election of Governor Bill Haslam, and then 2012 when Republicans won supermajorities in both Tennessee's state Senate and House of Representatives for the first time in more than a century.
These were yellow dog Democratic areas dating back to the 19th century, quite frankly. Were primed, ready for a partisan turnover.
You can drive down the streets in some of these rural counties and look at all the closed up shops. They didn't think that Democrats cared about them.
As a historic Tennessean, even though most Tennesseans would say that race has not been an issue in this shift, I would posit that it most assuredly has been.
Will Tennessee stay deep red? Only time and the next several elections will tell. Dave Stripling, MT10 News.
And from Tennessee's votes yesterday evening and now, it seems the trends will continue to grow in the future.
Tennessee has a trend of voting red in national elections. With tonight, as history is being made, it's Tennessee truly red? Don Nieman has more.
How red is the red state of Tennessee? Since 2000, the state has voted red or Republican for the president. The last time Tennessee voted Democrat for the president was 1996 for incumbent President Bill Clinton. With the rise of youth voter turnout, a pandemic, and an increase of human rights movements, Tennessee might see a shift. Muriel Rempis is a political science and history major, and she is arguing that Tennessee is more purple.
So, purple means to me that we're going to see very large areas that are considered metropolitan that will vote blue, and they will be encapsulated by areas of red, because that's just kind of what happens between the split between metro and rural areas. As well as, us being more likely to vote that way, it's areas that are most closely affected by the lack of use for socialized spending policies that tend to vote against their favor and reject those ideals.
According to the Tennessee Secretary of State website, early voter turnout this year has increased 40% across the state. While younger generations may take their political views from their parents, this isn't always the case.
Our tendencies to vote rely on the age of our state and of the residents of our state. We have lifelong Tennesseans, we have families that have always been from Tennessee, and we have a lot of pride in our state. And I believe that in general, people are more willing to vote for liberal ideologies as long as they are not called liberal ideologies. And I think that because we rely so heavily on socialized spending policies within the state, we are more likely to vote blue if it's not called blue.
While Tennessee is expected to remain red in 2020, a record number of Tennesseans made sure their voices were heard at the ballot box. Don Nieman, MT10 News.
Tennessee truly has mixed views, and the voters are responsible for the state's color.
The stakes are higher than ever for the election as millions of votes have been cast. However, anxiety is lingering from the polls to back at home watching the election. With the pandemic, human rights movements, and increasing tension from politics create an environment where someone can easily get overwhelmed. Lisa Schrader explains a good way to manage your stress and anxiety. Continues after the election, MTSU Health Services is offering a post-election support group tomorrow on Zoom at 2 p.m. Register online at least 15 minutes before the start time.
Still ahead on MT10 News, Jonas Saich took to the streets of local protests here in Murfreesboro.
And how did Rutherford County end up voting locally? That's coming up next on MT10 News Vote 2020.
Sometimes, one moment changes everything. One song, one game, one adventure, one mission. For a child battling a critical illness, a wish come true can be a turning point. You can transform lives, one wish at a time. Support Make-A-Wish and help grant more life-changing wishes. Learn more at wish.org.
Everyone deserves a decent place to live.
Everyone.
Todos. Decent shelter is something we all need to thrive. When a future homeowner partners with Habitat for Humanity to build or improve a home.
Build.
They build a better future for themselves and their families.
For my family.
For my family.
For my family.
Para mi familia. Your support empowers a family to help themselves.
Help.
Assiste. Your support helps another family in your community or around the world achieve strength, stability, self-reliance.
Strength. Fuerza.
With a little help, we all have the potential to stand on our own.
Potential.
Through shelter, we empower. Visit Habitat.org to provide help to families like these today.
Tensions were higher than ever in Murfreesboro last week as dozens took to the streets of Murfreesboro. Jonas Saich has the story.
With less than a week remaining before Election Day, the streets were buzzing with both sides off of Old Fort Parkway yesterday, eager to show their support or protest. Trump supporters had planned this event for a couple of weeks now, but when Black Lives Matter activists and other people spread the word on social media using this post, protesters showed up, and in numbers. One of the organizers who chose to remain anonymous claimed that at least 40 people had attended the counter-protest and all played their part.
I would say pretty much everyone out here organized it in some sense. You know, they all brought something, they all came here with something, they all brought their own sign, they all organized it, you know, so.
That's not to say Trump supporters didn't do the same. Hundreds appeared as signs were shown and flags were flown as they also participated in their own demonstration of being an American.
Everybody should be Americans all the way across. If you've ever had a family member or anybody come home underneath the American flag, you'll understand.
But it certainly wasn't all peaceful. This is 2020, after all. I caught a glimpse of that as I was interviewing another protester. After the attack, police eventually had to be on the scene to separate one another, turning the near physical conflict into a shouting match. What seemed like an event that could have gone horribly wrong ended rather peacefully. No fists were thrown or signs stolen. Just another day closer to one of the biggest elections in recent history. From Murfreesboro, Jonas Saich, MT10 News.
With the results still too close to call, it is likely that protests will take place no matter who wins.
Republican incumbent Scott Desjardins won re-election in Tennessee's 4th congressional district. The election was expected by many experts to be closer than it ended up being. With Desjardins winning by a sizable margin, Desjardins' opponent Christopher Hill ran a well-organized campaign that was well-funded, which is why the margin came off as a little bit of a surprise. Independent vote R. Andre Cortez explained why he voted for Christopher Hill over Scott Desjardins.
I mean, I knew he was always going to be for healthcare, which is honestly a big appeal to me. I just feel like healthcare should be more affordable. But yeah, it definitely did work on me, you know, their strategy.
Still ahead on MT10 News, we take our final look at the election for the night.
That's coming up on MT10 News Vote 2020.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day, I found out I had something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Todd's a great guy. I mean, look at him. What a sweetheart. Attaboy. Wait, Todd, what are you doing? How totally selfish and un-Todd-like of you. Come on, Todd. Come on, man.
Oh! Checking your fantasy league?
Nah, just my 401k statement.
Nice. Where'd you find the money for that?
I just been saving a little every month.
I can't seem to save anything.
Well, what about all this? What about the money you're spending?
What money? It's gone before I can get my hands on it.
I got a pizza for a Todd.
Hey, can somebody spot me?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind.
It's 547.
Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
Data reporter Jonas Saich and our data analyst Dr. Ken Blake join us now for our final look at the 2020 poll results.
We are at the home stretch, Dr. Blake. We are finally getting ready to wrap things up, go into tomorrow. And while we may be done here, things are certainly not done on the electoral map. Dr. Blake, what do you see looking forward to tomorrow that may get some of these states to turn red or blue?
What I see is a nail biter. We're at 223 electoral votes for Joe Biden, 212 for Donald Trump right now, 103 still up for grabs. Texas just went for Donald Trump, and we still have Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, and Maine, and Alaska, don't forget, on the map. And I think it's anybody's guess at this point what this map's going to look like in the morning.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you can see this does not have Texas, but Texas was just recently called in favor of Trump. So that puts it at a much bigger nail biter coming into tomorrow. Less than 15 electoral votes deciding between these two candidates. Here's Pennsylvania right now, one of those battleground states, 56.6% for Trump, 42% for Biden. This looks like you could not even fathom a comeback. But when you take account that I believe over 500,000 ballots, absentee ballots, have not been counted yet, and they're going to look for that or look to finish counting those tomorrow. Dr. Blake, what is the significance of those votes not being counted yet? And could this really bring Pennsylvania to be a nail biter as well?
Oh, it sure could. We really need to wait until every vote is counted, or at least enough are counted so that we know that the ones that have not been counted won't make a difference. This is clearly not the night I think that Democrats were hoping for. They were hoping for a wider margin in their favor. I'm sure that Republicans were hoping for a wider margin in their favor as well. What we have is a nation that is still very divided. Even if whoever wins, this is going to remain a pretty close, I think, outcome. So we've still got some work to do as a nation, some deciding to do.
Yeah, definitely a divided set here. And there's the results for Michigan, 53.8%, 44.6%. Still too close to call, but there are plenty of battleground states, especially in the Northeast, that Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, even Georgia, which we mentioned earlier, has stopped voting altogether. DeKalb County, where Atlanta is, a very urban area, under 30% reporting, done for the night. Tomorrow, you're going to see a lot more results pour in, not just in Georgia, but in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Ohio. And as of now, this is what we're looking at for 2020. As of now, for the popular vote, Biden is up by nearly a little over a percentage with 63.3 million votes. Donald Trump with 61.7. Dr. Blake, are we going to see another election where the popular vote is not the deciding factor in who wins?
It sure is looking that way right now. There's a movement to do away with the Electoral College. The more often this kind of thing happens, the more often the Electoral College outcome and the popular vote outcome are out of sync. The more that movement begins to, the more momentum that movement's going to pick up. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, there is a possibility that this won't be decided, period. Neither candidate may have 270 electoral votes by the end, and at that point, the House would get a vote, one for each state, not represented by population, but just one per state. Dr. Blake, you have been such a great help for us. Your services are no longer needed. Go home, get some sleep, go to bed. You have earned it. You have earned a good night's rest. I will do the exact same. Terica, Dave, I hope you do that as well. Get a good night's sleep.
Dr. Blake and Jonas, thank you so much for keeping us posted. And thank you for joining us for Vote 2020. I'm Terica Black.
And I'm Dave Stripling. Thank you for staying with us for our election coverage tonight.
Make sure to join us for our Thursday night newscast at 6:30 p.m. We'll have all the latest updates on the results of this too close election.
This has been MT10 News Vote 2020. Good night, Rutherford County.